Breaking tonight, an outpouring of outrage from some, celebration from others, after President Obama directs his UN ambassador to allow passage of an unprecedented United Nations resolution condemning settlement construction in Israel. In moments, we will speak to Governor Mike Huckabee, a frequent visitor to Israel, who is calling this a betrayal of Israel. But first, correspondent David Lee Miller has the latest from the United Nations in New York City. David Lee?
Sandra, some UN observers say the vote today underscores a radical shift in U.S. policy. For the first time now in nearly 4 decades, the United States has failed to exercise its veto power in stopping a resolution addressing Israeli settlements. Before the vote, the U.S. would not disclose what it was going to do, but many Israelis did fear that there was going to be what they called some type of Obama December surprise. The relationship between the U.S. president and the Israeli prime minister has been very strained over the last several months and longer, and many feared this vote would be the consequence. A short time ago, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations cast her vote abstaining when it came to this resolution. She said it does not diminish U.S. support for Israel. Here's more of what Samantha Power had to say about the reasoning behind the U.S. position.
Some may cast the U.S. vote as a sign that we have finally given up on a two-state solution. Nothing could be further from the truth.
And a short time ago, we heard a tweet from the president-elect, Donald Trump. He said, and I quote, "As to the UN, things will be different after January 20th. Others have also been speaking out very publicly following the U.S. failure to use its veto on both sides of the aisle. New York Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer, John McCain, as well as South Carolina Republican Lindsey Graham, all very critical of the U.S. position. Back to you.
All right, David Lee Miller, thank you. Here now, Governor Mike Huckabee, who has been deeply involved for years with issues involving Israel, frequently visiting Israel and meeting with Israeli government officials at the highest levels. Governor Huckabee, your response to this breaking news today?
Sandra, I am so outraged I can't even hardly contain myself. What Obama did today was basically extend a real nice final farewell and wave to Israel and to Prime Minister Netanyahu. He just bothered to use one finger in the middle of his hand to do it. This is the most amazing position he could have taken. If Donald Trump gets to, the first thing he does, I hope, is send some jackhammers over to Turtle Bay neighborhood in Manhattan and jackhammer the whole United Nations off into the East River and float it to wherever it needs to go. But this is an insult, not just to Israel, but this is an insult to every person who loves freedom. And when people use the term settlements, they may think of the Israelis building, a bunch of tents or mobile homes. These settlements are communities and neighborhoods with schools and curbs and gutters and synagogues and shops and permanent structures where people live and raise their families. And Judea and Samaria belong to Israel. Obama is even saying that the Western Wall ought to be part of territory that's given back. This is insane. This is so beyond anything we've seen in 40 years. It's just stunning.
Well, let me tell you the first thing that the president-elect did do, Donald Trump tweeting out after the vote, as to the UN, things will be different after January 20th. What do you expect the president-elect to do? What will his response be, or should it be, Governor Huckabee?
I think he ought to say that we're not going to continue to spend money funding the UN if they're going to be doing stupid and, frankly, idiotic things that are hurtful to any hope of peace. There's no peace ever going to happen from going along with the state-sponsored terrorist of Iran. Here's what we've done, Sandra. For the past few years under this administration, we have been kissing the backside of the Iranians, the largest sponsor of terrorism in the world, and we have been kicking the backside of the only real, true, loyal friend we have in the entire Middle East, the Israelis. Now, somebody explain why that makes any sense, even in a world of insanity like we sometimes see in the diplomatic world. This doesn't make sense. It's a clear indication that President Obama, no matter what he says, clearly is not cordial or even supportive of the free and democratic process of peace that lives in Israel right now.
Let me share with you
the
words of one Israeli official prior to the vote happening, slamming President Obama as well as Secretary of State John Kerry for being behind what he calls a shameful move against Israel at the UN. He called this an abandonment of Israel, which breaks decades of U.S. policy. Obviously, this makes an already icy relationship with the U.S. and Israel even icier.
Well, it's interesting that even leading Democrats like Chuck Schumer and others, I think Sherrod Brown from Ohio, have also said this is not a good policy. This is not a good position. This is not about partisanship. This isn't Democrat versus Republican. This is about common sense versus insanity. Yeah. And for President Obama to push a policy that embraces the Iranians and then goes and brushes back our one true friend, and to somehow pretend that Israel doesn't have a right to protect themselves, to live in a secure environment, a place for their people to live. And Judea and Samaria are not illegal territories. They are the God-given boundaries that Israel has rightfully taken possession of.
It'll be interesting to see what Chuck Schumer's response is now of an administration that he's been so supportive of, knowing that right before the vote, he said he had spoken to the administration numerous times, Governor, as recently as this morning, the morning of the vote, and in the strongest term possible urged them to veto this resolution. So this will continue. Governor Huckabee, thank you for being here.